Hi everyone. So like I promised in the last video, the first case that we are going to study today is OpenAI versus uh, Asian News Network, that is ANI. So OpenAI basically has ChatGPT. So in the last video I spoke about ChatGPT. So what does ChatGPT do? It is one of the AI models, like I explained before, which basically needs to be trained on data. So to train it on data, what is done is a lot of copyrighted information which is available in the public domain is basically fed to it, or it is trained on those data sets. So now it takes in that data set as an input, and then it is fine tuned with that data set, and then it gives an output, and that output is basically an AI generated output, or a generative mimicry, which is then basically used to claim authorship or inventorship by a person who is dealing with that particular information, or who claims that he produced that particular information. So the whole dilemma basically revolves around this particular issue. So now in this particular case, what has happened is that there are several news reports and news articles. So now this is copyrighted material which is available in the public domain, but it's already protected. So now a lot of this news material has been used by OpenAI to train their ChatGPT model. And the ChatGPT has used much of this data and has produced outputs. So user prompts, when given to ChatGPT, it will use those user prompts to fine tune itself, to sort of a programming happens, a process happens within. It will fine tune itself, and then it will provide an output. That output is further basically used by OpenAI to claim authorship over that particular data which is produced. So now OpenAI then filed a case claiming authorship over its original news report. So now why is OpenAI or why is ANI doing this, or why OpenAI is claiming authorship when it very clearly knows that the news reports belong to ANI? So now let's look at it from both the perspectives. So first, what is these news reports are factual details, but the biggest element that is involved here is human contribution. So like I mentioned before, there is human intellect and human contribution that is involved. So when we talk about human contribution, there is a transformativeness. That transformativeness basically changes the nature of the work from being something which is just mere taking in information and generating information to sort of involving or ingesting some amount of creativity into that particular or instilling some amount of creativity into that existing data. So once that creativity or that transformativeness is basically instilled into that data, or then that basically changes the character or color of that information, and what you bring out is something unique. What is generated is something unique, and that is why originality is given importance in the copyright issues. So when originality is given importance, only then you can get a copyright for that particular piece of work. So in this case, ANI is basically protesting on those grounds as to how there is lack of originality in what this particular OpenAI is claiming as its own information, because merely this AI model, that is ChatGPT, is taking in information and giving out the same information without any element of human intellect or creativity involved, no transformativeness involved. So the absence of intellect or absence of human contribution makes it borrowing of information, or to an extent going to stealing of information, and just fabricating that for its own advantage. So that cannot be the case, and that is why it is suing it for copyright infringement, because the data already existing, which already has been copyrighted, is basically being infringed upon by OpenAI. But what in this particular case, how OpenAI has defended itself is that it has basically argued saying there is human contribution, there is human intellect, there is transformativeness, and its biggest defense is that this news which has been generated, or the output which has been generated by ChatGPT, will fall under section 52 of the Indian Copyright Act, which talks about fair use. So we should be very careful when we use fair use, because fair use applies in only exceptional situations and exceptional cases of research, teaching, etc. So now in this case, when we are talking about fair use, OpenAI has been using this argument, and very carefully, and the court has also defended or taken the side of Delhi High Court has taken the side of OpenAI, and has also said that ANI News Network in this case will not succeed or win this case, because there is transformativeness which is observed in the generated output, and it is not mere borrowing of information, and there is no case of infringement which could be established. So therefore, since no evidence has been there for infringement, and there is evidence which has been there for transformativeness, and there is fair use which is there, the copyright authorship has to go to OpenAI as opposed to an ANI News Network. So now, keeping this aside, there is one more issue which is being contested here, is about the compilation and collection of data, which also qualifies for copyright protection. So we have seen that in many cases going back, because even encyclopedias, which are basically or primarily just collection of data, or just compilation of data, also get protection under copyright. Now these are not ideas don't merit protection under copyright. So these are not ideas, expression of ideas, but collection of information which is done in a certain manner. That organization of information, that selection process that goes on, that is what is chosen to be collection of information categorized in a particular sequence or order, and qualifying or meriting protection through copyright. So therefore, in this particular, since this has been the pattern which has been followed for copyright protection, even in this particular case, the same logic has been applied, and copyright protection has been given to OpenAI. And unfortunately, the claims raised by ANI has been dismissed by the Delhi High Court. It will be interesting to follow the next steps in this particular case. In the next video, I'll come up with another interesting case that we can follow up on. Thank you.